Spain has been in the news of late, especially after the 1st October referendum called by the province of Catalonia. And since then, we've seen the tussle between Madrid and Barcelona get uglier by the day. To discuss this and other issues, I'm now joined by Ambassador Baranano. Ambassador, welcome to WION and thank you for making time to speak to us. May I begin by asking you about the competing narratives one is hearing from both Madrid and Barcelona. What's the latest that you are hearing from Spain?
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to speak a little bit about Spain and the situation in Catalonia. And well, the latest news, if I go back to Friday, which was the Black Friday, so to say, for the Spanish people, because of this, both the declaration of independence by the government of Catalonia and just 1 hour later, the application of the Article 155 of the Spanish Constitution, removing the government of Catalonia due to this declaration of independence. What is the situation? Technically, there is no more government in Catalonia. There is either all the president and the whole ministers, so to call, they have been removed. The rest of the structure still there. So the government of Catalonia has not been abolished. Only the heads of the government have been removed to be replaced temporarily for others, but just for administration. There is no other meaning on this movement. The only thing is that this independence declaration and this independence movement had to be stopped because it's absolutely illegal from the Spanish constitutional point of view.
So what you're saying is that the referendum was illegal.
Yeah.
The Catalonian parliament has been dissolved
Yeah.
or suspended.
Yeah.
And the government has also been suspended and direct rule has been imposed in Catalonia. Is that correct?
Well, the parliament has not been suspended as such.
Okay.
But the moment you call for election, automatically the parliament
Right.
is suspended as a consequence of calling for election. So, but only the government was removed, not the parliament. Well, illegal, absolutely illegal. Many questions, for example. Just if we're talking about the so to say, so that people can understand, talking about the Catalonian constitution, which is the Catalonian law that regulates the government and the legislative power. Any change of this law requires 2/3 of the parliament. But they, in an absolutely awkward decision, decided not only to abolish this law, but to abolish the Spanish constitution just by a majority of the parliament, doing something that they are not allowed on the constitution.
Right.
Because in Spain, the subject of the sovereignty is the people of Spain, not a region, not part of the people. So you cannot declare just a referendum on one part of the country. Everybody has a vote. Right. It's unthinkable that a group of Spanish people, just because they decide so, are going to make me foreigner in my own country. That's unacceptable.
Ambassador, as you said, the December 21 regional elections has been called by Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy.
Yeah.
Would the Catalan leaders, especially Carles Puigdemont, would he be eligible to run for a second term in the election?
One thing is what the government does, and another thing is what the judiciary does. From a political point of view, there is no reason why not.
Okay.
The only thing will depend on the judiciary, because many of the action taken by the government could be considered a rebellion and even a coup d'etat. So, but in this sense, it's not the government who's going to decide. Are the judges, is the Supreme Court who's going to decide if he's going to be prosecuted or not. And if he's going to be prosecuted, normally he will not be able to run for the elections.
And in recent days, we've heard from Carles Puigdemont himself. He said most recently, he's asked people, Catalan people, to go in for peaceful resistance or democratic resistance. What would you think must be the meaning of this term, peaceful resistance? And also we are hearing reports about possible him seeking asylum in the neighborhood, especially in Belgium. How credible are these reports?
Well, asylum in Belgium is just a joke, no? There's nothing. It's no prosecution. It's nothing going on a judiciary. The judiciary is studying what to do because of what has happened. But this is one thing. And just looking for asylum, that's something crazy. I think that's a little bit of fake news. The other question...
Peaceful resistance that you spoke about?
Yeah, I mean, peaceful resistance. There is resistance or no resistance. No? But what is peaceful resistance? Where and when resistance is peaceful or not is very complicated to say. Imagine that you decide to stay in front of the house of the Prime Minister and don't move and don't let him out. Is it peaceful or not? Or not moving from an airplane? Is it peaceful or not? No? I mean, peaceful resistance is, okay, you stay there, you express yourself, and when the police come or say, please move, you move. But the moment you start to react, this is not peaceful resistance. There is not force applied, but, and sometimes it's not so peaceful. It begins peaceful, but normally it doesn't end that much peaceful. No?
Ambassador, when you look back at the events in the last few months, the Catalan people say that Catalonia is, by the way, one of the richest regions or provinces of Spain.
Yeah.
The people pay their taxes, but their share in the revenue is comparatively low, and therefore they feel cheated or slighted. Now, would you agree with the submission that there is some reason for them to feel resentment against Madrid?
No, I mean, there is a lot of misinterpretation and a lot of media campaign by the Catalan government make them look as the poor people that are being oppressed by the Spanish tyranny, that they have no liberty at all, that they are miserable and they need to go out. First, absolutely wrong. But let's go to the economic factor.
Yeah.
Spain has 17 autonomous regions, but some of the competences are attributed to the regions. For example, to Catalonia, education, social services, police is even exclusive for them. But one thing has not been done, which is taxes. All the taxes are collected by the central government and distributed through all the region. So there are no region paying taxes. There are individuals paying taxes. And those who earn more money pay more money, independent of where they are. So this is not a question of Catalans paying more or Catalans paying less. Those people who earn more pay more. That's the logic, because solidarity. And there is, and when you collect all this money, there is also a conference from prime ministers and where they decide how to share this income among the regions. Of course, those regions who have more kids, education budget has the larger, or pensions or whatever. It's done this way. But it's not a question of this region or this region. It's a question of solidarity among the whole Spanish people. Madrid is the same. Madrid is the same because the income in Madrid is higher than other regions. And it's logical that some of this income goes to the poorer regions in Spain. At the European level, for example, Spain has been receiving a lot of funds. Why? Because the development of Spain was lower. It does mean that they don't want Spain because, no, the rest of Europe was supporting Spain during this period. Now we have grown, and now this money does not go to where it used to go. They maybe go to other regions in Europe who are more in need, but nothing to do with the region.
Ambassador, you mentioned about the economy. Now, again, with the benefit of hindsight, when you look back at the events, do you think the trigger for this referendum or this call for independence could be the economic recession, or do you think this is more political?
I would need to talk about nationalism, which is a problem, which is not a problem only in Spain, which is a problem spreading all over Europe, no?
Right.
And this has a lot to do with nationalism. Separatism is just nationalism. But the question is not that it's not, as they say, it's something that is we are going to integrate. On the contrary, nationalism is disintegrating, is willing to disintegrate, no? Nothing to do. The problem is that at one moment, this nationalism, which is the danger of nationalism, become irrational. When nationalism turns into a religion, then there are no rules, no economic rules, not political rules, not cultural rules.
Right.
The question is, I want this, doesn't matter if my country is broken, doesn't matter if the families are broken, doesn't matter anything. That's the problem when a nationalism, instead of being a political issue, becomes almost a fanatic or religious issue.
And Ambassador, now we know that there are 17 autonomous provinces in Spain. There's a degree of autonomy to all the provinces. Now, would the government of Spain, represented by Prime Minister Rajoy, be willing to grant more autonomy to Catalonia in the days ahead, short of independence or secession?
Catalonia is the region in Spain with more autonomy of all, with the Basque Country. These two are the most, I mean, more than any state in the United States, more than any lender in Germany, the level of autonomy is huge. So there's always room for discussion. But I mean, not only with the central government, it's also with the other autonomous region. No? The government acts in many cases as a moderator between the regions, because when one region asks for more money, the others say, and what about me? And somebody has to moderate this whole issue. No? The question is to reach a balance. More autonomy, I don't know, it's possible, but inside the constitution.
Ambassador, you mentioned about the Basque country. Now we know that as recently as April this year, the ETA, the terrorist group, disarmed itself and complete break with the past. And suddenly we see the Catalan referendum. So is it a bittersweet moment for Spain? On the one hand, ETA has disarmed. On the other hand, Catalonia is seeking independence. How do you view the domestic developments within Spain?
Catalonia and the Basque Country have their own language and their own culture, all integrated in Spain, but they are very keen in defending their cultural status. No? So, and they have had for many years, and the government, the Spain as a whole, has recognized this fact and has given these two regions, which was not easy, more autonomic powers than the rest of Andalusia, just to say one word. No, so we have to wait. What's the final solution? But what we see that this is a disaster, economic disaster for Catalonia. This is absolutely clear. I mean, that's what I was talking about, the irrationality in this nationalism or this separatism. It doesn't matter what happens, it doesn't matter if the companies go, it doesn't matter anything. We just want to be independent. Right. But they don't think, what the hell are they going to do outside the European Union? What are they doing with the production of cars when they cannot sell them to the European Union because there is no an agreement with the European Union? It's not even an agreement with the rest of the world because they are not members of the General Agreement on Tariff and Trade. They think they can do it in just one moment. I mean, this is absolutely crazy. Just, I'll give you an example, the Brexit. UK is a long history country with a huge tradition, with their government, with the foreign services, with the internal revenue, everything. It's okay. Just to go out of the European Union, which is an agreement, not to break anything, just to go out of the Union. They are discussing and discussing and discussing because it's very complicated, it's very difficult, and they need a transitional period. Right. 2 or 3 years of negotiation and maybe 2 or 3 years of that. and the Catalans are going to do it from one day to the other. I mean, you have to be kidding, no?
Thus, you mentioned the EU and the Brexit. Now, at the regional level, at the level of the European Union, what do issues such as the Catalan referendum, Brexit, as you mentioned, the Scottish referendum, even the Kurdish referendum in Iraq, what do they imply for the EU and the world at large? What does this give you, talk to you about the importance of or the implications of referendums around the world?
We cannot go to a Europe of 100 nations. That's number one. So everybody, almost everybody in Europe is against this type of splitting Europe in pieces, or splitting the countries in pieces. The case of Scotland is different because Scotland was a kingdom and it was a negotiated referendum. Catalonia has never ever been a state in history, never. I'm not going to discuss history, but it was part of the kingdom of Aragon. But apart from that, I know they feel, they have the feeling of being a culture different and having a language, and now everything is around their flag. I know, I understand this, but referendum is allowed either if you have been a colony, which is not the case of Catalonia, or maybe if you are under a tyranny or oppression, which is not the case of Catalonia. Their language, they speak their language without restrictions. In fact, maybe you don't know, but 50% of the people living in Catalonia have Spanish as a mother tongue. 50%. Only 30% Catalan as a mother tongue. Okay, the Spanish kids from Spanish mother and Spanish family, they cannot go to school in Spanish. Spanish is banned in public school. So if you talk about discrimination, look the other way around. No? So that's important to know. They can study their language, they can spread their culture without restriction. So in a cultural, politically, they are part of European Union. Economically, they are one of the most prosperous regions in Spain. Why should they need to be independent if it's not something which is irrational in the sense that has not basis? It's more, as I tell you, confusing the nationalism and not thinking about anything else.
Ambassador, if I understood you correctly, you were saying that the EU cannot be split into 100 different states. So therefore, are you saying that there should be a moratorium on new states and also a moratorium on redrawing of borders within the European Union?
In a world,
there should be a freeze on the borders, as it were.
No, but in a world where we are integrating, it's getting a world where barriers, borders, I mean, you cross Europe, there's no border anymore. Why would you like to put some more borders around? The question is integrate, not disintegrate. Nationalism has caused so millions of deaths in Europe that nobody wants to. So we're worried about what's happening with this right and left wing parties, not big, but worrying at European level. So we cannot allow this to happen. That would be dangerous. Our experience tells us that nationalism is a very high risk. No? So I think the European Union, it's very clear. We want to integrate. We have been 40 or 50, I don't know, 70 years without war for the first time in history. That's one of the biggest advantages of the European Union, and we don't want to throw it overboard.
Ambassador, people around the world are watching developments in Spain very closely, and many people think that what is happening in Catalonia today might happen in some of other parts of the world tomorrow. So what are the implications of the Catalonia referendum for other parts of the world going forward? What are the lessons Spain would have learned from this crisis?
I cannot speak about, as I tell you, I cannot speak about the rationality of this nationalist separatist, because it has no rationality. It does not. It's impossible to explain just with trying to be rational. You have to, it's an emotional feeling more than anything else. But what are the consequences? Well, socially, because it's not Catalonia against Spain. It's Catalans fighting each other, because half of the population may would like to be independent, but more than half of the population doesn't want to be independent. So you know how many families are split? Do you know how many all friendship have been split? You know what does it represent having a broken society? So this is one of the lessons, no, that has to be learned. No? We need a little bit more of not rewriting history, not rewriting book of history, and trying to be together and not trying to put barriers one of each other. That's from a social point of view. Economical point of view, you have seen, I mean, you know, everybody know that many companies are moving out of Catalonia. When there is a legal risk, a political risk, an economic risk, I mean, capital is very shy, and capital hides in tremendously. No? So that's logical. That's the second lesson to learn. No?
Ambassador, talking about the lessons learned now, we know India and Spain have enjoyed good relations over the decades. And we talk about India in particular. India is a union of states, a multi-linguistic, multicultural, multi-ethnic, multi-religious society. At some level, do you think Spain and Europe at large can learn something from the Indian experience?
The biggest lesson is that a state or a nation does not mean one language, one culture, and one ethnic. India is a perfect example of people with 22 different languages or more, 29 states. I don't know how many religions, but 3, 4, 5 big religions, and they are united, and they all of them feel themselves Indian. No? And of course, they can be from A, from B to C, but this is a lesson to learn. If a country with 1.4 million people can be united with such much disparities, we with 2 disparities, how can we just fight against each other? No?
Absolutely. And in conclusion, Ambassador, if you take a step back and look at the India-Spain bilateral ties in the regional context, in the global context, where do you think the relationship might be headed? If we leave the crisis aside for a moment, how do you foresee the India-Spain relations in the near future?
In economic terms, the shifting of the companies to Madrid does not affect Madrid or Valencia or whatever. No, it's just the legal office, so to say. The company is still working, the workers are still there, but I mean, they are still part of Spain, and the relations of the companies in Catalonia, which is very strong with companies in India, it's going to be like the same. It doesn't have to change at all. So this aspect is not affecting the Indian-Spanish relation. In fact, there are a lot of Indians living in Barcelona, so it's a very close relation between Barcelona and other parts of India. So I don't think there's going to be, maybe temporary because of this internal uncertainty. Maybe some Indian companies say, okay, just look back a little bit, but there shouldn't be a problem. The relations are growing after the visit of Prime Minister Modi in the end of May. It was a turning point, 30 years without a visit of a Prime Minister to Spain. And we are both countries which share our defense of the integrity of the country, not geographical integrity, share our respect of human rights, share the democracy, the rule of law. So we have many things in common and very few things that take us apart. So from here it's just building up. And that's what President Modi, President Rajoy and Prime Minister Modi decided to do. So I think the future, it's very positive. We are not a top player, we know that, no? But we like to be in the top 10 if possible in the future. No?
On that note, Ambassador, thank you so much for speaking to WION. It was a pleasure talking to you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.